Welcome to the Professor Knits podcast. I'm your host, Nikki, and this is episode 7. This podcast is about knitting, spinning, and dyeing yarn. Well, before I get into the knitting and my finished objects, what an eclipse. I know it's kind of already a few days old now. Let's see, the eclipse was on Monday, and I'm filming this on Friday, the 25th of August. Hopefully it gets up to YouTube in the next day or two. But anyway, what an eclipse. As you all know, if you're a returning viewer, I've recently relocated to Knoxville, Tennessee, and the path of totality was about 40 miles from here out in Lenoir City, where my father-in-law lives. So my husband and I, we packed up the kids and we went out there, and he lives in something called the Tellico Village that has a private beach for people who live in the village and people and their guests. So we went to this private beach, so there wasn't a lot of people there. It was a small sized crowd, so very manageable. And we had a fantastic vantage point of the total eclipse. And I will admit, I was a little bit, whatever. I remember the last time there was a total lunar eclipse that was visible from where I was. It was 1979. And my memories of it are pretty vague and foggy. I was young. I was old enough to remember, but young enough for the memory not to be completely solidified. And I do remember it, and I remember, not being all that impressed. But again, I was a little kid. And then this time around, I thought, okay, well, sure, let's do it. The kids won't remember. They're too young, but we'll do it anyway. Well, what a treat, because for 2 glorious minutes, we could stare at that thing without any protective eyewear, without our glasses or anything like that. And it was like nothing I'd ever seen before, obviously. And it was just the way that the artificial dusk was really amazing. The cicadas, of course, were tricked and they came out. So through the whole 2 minutes of the total eclipse, there were the screeching of the cicadas, which I've really come to love. When I first heard them for the very first time, I was terrified. I thought there was something wrong with the wires, or that it was invasion of the body snatchers. For those of you of a certain generation, you'll remember the invasion of the body snatchers with, I think it was Donald Sutherland, a young Donald Sutherland, and that screeching sound they would make, the invaders. And so the first time I ever heard cicadas, it took me a couple of years to be able to tolerate them. Now I love them if I even notice them. And sure enough, the cicadas came out, so it added that extra dynamic, that extra ambiance, if you will, to the experience. So I was very, very impressed, I have to say. My blasé attitude towards it didn't last very long. So it was a fun time. Other than that, there isn't a whole lot going on. We're getting settled into the house very slowly, very, very slowly. I just don't have the motivation to hang pictures. You can tell we still have this big blank wall behind me. We've hung a few photos and put up a few things. I'm just not into it. But I am feeling good about the move. We moved from South Dakota, from a very large, nearly 3,000 square foot house to our house here in Knoxville, which is about 1,200. And I was so stressed out about it. Where am I going to put all of our crap? And we left a lot of stuff up in Vermilion. And that's the town. But you know what? I'm finding that I'm a little bit less stressed out, because the house is tiny. It's all on one floor. I always know where the kids are, right? I don't have to worry about running up and down flights of stairs looking for my toddler or anything like that. I'm a really good mom. She goes missing quite a bit at home. But here we're all, in close proximity to each other, and that does make it a lot easier. And it forced me to streamline and throw a lot of crap out, and only put or unpack stuff that's essential. So everything is going well. I'm going to London in a couple of weeks. I really can't wait for that. So all sorts of you know, the day-to-day life is boring, but it's punctuated with these good events. So let's just get straight to the knitting after that long introduction. I have my coffee going. I'm drinking a lot of coffee. This is not a handmade cup. This is not an advertisement for anybody. This is my Knoxville Zoo cup. Knoxville has an amazing zoo. If you are in the Knoxville area, even if you don't have little kids, they've got they've got two young gorillas and one baby. And the young gorillas are still very babyish. And the tigers are amazing. It's a really fantastic zoo, and it's a very affordable zoo. So I really suggest you go if you are in the area. So that's my Knoxville. We always pick up something in the souvenir shop. We're members, of course, with 2 little kids. We go a lot. And I can't help but always pick up some sort of souvenir to support them. Okay, so finished objects. I've got 2 finished objects. So let's start with the one I'm wearing. My Lush cardigan is finally finished. Let me try to get up and model it for y'all. I love it. It fits really, really well. I am wearing a tank top underneath because the lace portion is kind of revealing in this area. But I love it. It fits really well. The buttons are hardly noticeable, which is what I wanted. As you can see from the top, I haven't blocked it yet, so there's a little bit of rippling here. If I had maybe put a snap right here, I wouldn't have to block it at all. But I think I could do the lace panel a little bit more justice if I did block it. But I'm not a big fan of blocking. I do block my shawls, but I hate blocking in general, even though I know it's a good thing for the knitting. But it's hard right now in this house because, like I said, it's such a small house. I don't have a separate room to do it in, and something like this will take a while to dry, and my daughter will get to it somehow, right? And there's just no place to put it right now. But I'll figure it out. We're trying to finish up the basement in this house. I know, we just finished with one reno. We're back to this house that we renovated 4 years ago, and now we're trying to finish renovating the basement. We don't learn. We don't learn. Once that's done, the size of the house will double, and I'll be able to have a home crafting office and things like that downstairs. So I'm looking forward to that. But I can wear this no problem in the meantime. So I love it. But I am going to take it off because it is hot in here. And what's interesting, because it's only I think the low 80s outside. It's quite cool by Knoxville standards outside, but it's a little too hot for me to be wearing this while podcasting, because I do kind of run high temperature while I'm podcasting. Okay, so for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this is the Lush cardigan by TinCan Knits. I've been working on it for a couple months. It kind of hibernated for a while because I didn't have buttons. And I knitted it in the SHALIMAR yarn, Breathless DK weight, MCN base. So it's got some, I think, 10% cashmere. So it's a really nice, soft, hand-dyed yarn. Very nice yarn. And it was knit for me on size 6 needles, I think. And I like when people tell me, I like it when podcasters tell me their needles, what needles they're using, but I always forget to do it, I guess because most of the time, if it's not socks, then it's just my Knit Picks Harmony wooden set. And of course, if I'm doing socks, it's my Addy Sock Rockets. So it was just size 6, and then the ribbing and cuffs and whatnot were size 3. Although when I do have something that calls for a size 3, I have a Carbons size 3. It's the only Carbons I have, and I usually use them because I like them a lot. Although I am getting kind of annoyed with them. The ridge between the silver and the black is getting worse. For those of you who use Carbons, you know what I'm talking about. And it's getting to the point where my yarn is actually snagging on it. So I don't know if they're deteriorating, if that's even possible, but I know it's a common complaint about those particular needles. I don't have them with me, so I don't think, anyway. Maybe I do. No. But these are the go-to knit picks. I think it's the Harmony Wood that I usually use for most of my projects because I have a set, an interchangeable set. Yay, Lush! I think I'll get a lot of wear out of it. It's my color. I love purple. The second finished object are my Mercury Socks. That is a pattern by Kim McKenzie, I think. I really liked doing these socks. It was the first time, well, I've only knit 5 pairs of socks. These are my July socks. Now, I didn't do these 2 at a time. I knitted one, then I knitted the other because it was my first time doing a pattern sock. And I was so careful when I did my second sock to make sure I was measuring to make them the same size. But they're like an inch, almost an inch off. I don't know, it just depends. Like, it's so weird. So I think from now on, I got to go back to 2 at a time, not just because of second sock syndrome, which I didn't have with this because I love the pattern so much. As you can see, a lot of people have knit these socks. I love the pattern so much, but not so much because of second sock syndrome, but so that I can have them identical in fit. The first time I ever knit a pair of socks, and I talked about this in my early episode, I think my first episode, was a sock fiasco. I had knitted one, and then it was like a year later that I did the other one, and they were like 2 inches or an inch and a half difference in size. So I just can't seem to do it. And I know what you might be thinking. You might be thinking, well, just keep track of your rows. But you do so many little rows when you're doing socks that I'll forget to keep I'll forget, oh, did I just click? Did I remember to count that row? And it's not my solution. It won't work for me. So I think I just have to go back to 2 at a time for my next pair. But even though one's a little tight and the other one is a perfect fit, I do like them. I've worn them around the house when the air conditioning's cranked. And I will definitely knit this pattern again. So I highly recommend it. I think Ellie at Skeendeer Knits, I think that's where I got the idea to do this pattern. I think she's done this pattern several times as well. Speaking of which, I think I might be joining her mitten club because I have done a little bit of stranded knitting for hats but never for mitts. And I would really like to join to learn about her technique. It's the Norwegian technique, and I'm trying to think of the word, but I want to say SHIBUI, but I know that that's not it because that's the name of the pattern company of my slope t-shirt, tank top. Shelby? I can't. I'm so sorry. I'll put it here, but I'll put it across the bottom of the screen. If I seem really airheaded, more airheaded than usual today, it's because I'm operating on about 2 hours of sleep. I think my daughter is having a growth spurt, or maybe some teeth are coming in, like maybe some molars. So we were up. I was up with her most of the night. I feel bad for her. She's in daycare today, and she must be exhausted because she hardly got any sleep. So that means I hardly got any sleep. So pardon me if I'm a little out there, more distracted than usual. Okay, so yeah, back to the mitten club. I've done mittens in the past, but never stranded mittens, and it's just not my go-to project. And I don't know why, because I love hand knit mittens. And my Auntie Diane, she's my knitting guru, she knits up these fantastic, I think it's Finnish or Icelandic style mitts. Everything is escaping me. Maybe for my next podcast, I'll show them because they're packed up for the winter right now. But she does these wonderful felted woolen mittens, and she's always got a fresh pair for me every year. Well, she's given me 2, so I shouldn't say every year. But I go through them because I wear them so much. Anyways, enough about that. So my 2 finished objects, I'm very excited to have 2 finished objects. Now, I'll move on to works in progress. I only have 2 works in progress right now. I just finished these about, I don't know, 4 or 5 days ago, maybe a week ago. And I haven't cast on my August socks yet, and it's August 25th. So I need to get a pair cast on. I've got the yarn picked out, and I will get them cast on. And I might just go great guns so I can finish them in August. I mean, I don't really care if I spill over. I didn't finish these until the middle of August, and these are my July socks. So it doesn't really matter, but I don't want to slip away too much, because if I give myself an inch, I'll take 5. And then the next thing you know, it'll be November, and I'll still be on my August socks. And the point is to have, you know, every year, for however long I want to keep knitting, I want to do a pair of socks a month for as long as I can, forever, for the rest of my life, if possible. But I have to maintain it. Okay, so for my next podcast, I will have a pair of socks cast on. So works in progress, I've only got 2 works in progress total. Well, that's not true. 3, because I do have my Jones cardigan that I'm knitting for my husband that's been hibernating since February, I think, or March. So there's that one. And then I have 2 whips. Can you believe that? I mean, I think I must be a heretic in the knitting community. I don't know what's going on. So one of them is something I've shown before, my Slope tank top by SHIBUI Knits, designed for SHIBUI Knits by Shelly Anderson. And I'm knitting it in this beautiful EUROFLAX 100% linen sport weight in navy blue. Sorry, my lighting isn't great, but I think you can get a sense of the blue. I'm just filming in natural lighting in my dining room. I don't have any lights or anything like that. I don't even have the ceiling light on. And I find that the color is pretty true. What's showing up on my monitor anyway for all of my projects. And I haven't made a whole lot of progress. I've knit the body. I'm at the point where it's time to separate under the arms, under the arms. And I just stopped because my hands needed a break. The linen is hard on my hands. And I wanted to knit with something softer for a while. So I haven't worked on this in about a week. And it's funny because I really want to get it finished because it's a linen tank top. I want to wear it. But I'm kind of nervous about it because it's already feeling rather heavy. And whenever I look at Twig, SHIBUI Twig, which is what this pattern was actually designed for, was that linen fiber or linen yarn. Or a friend of mine knits quite a bit with Sparrow by Quince & Company, or Quince & Co. When I see those linens, they look so much lighter, and I think they are. I think they're a fingering weight, where this is a sport weight. And I wonder if maybe I should be doing this in a fingering weight, even though the pattern calls for a sport weight. I just feel like it's already getting heavy, but who knows? I'm gonna, persevere and finish it up and decide. But anyways, back to my point. It's a linen tank top, and it's the end of August. I really want to have a linen garment for this summer. And I'm kind of always behind. I'm always behind the times. Like in popular culture, music, everything. I'm almost always several seasons, if not several years, behind what I should be doing or what's popular. Same thing with knitting. I'll be like knitting linen in the fall when I should be knitting it in the spring, and so on and so forth. So that's one work in progress, one whip. Now, my second whip, my yarn choices for my current whips are kind of boring in terms of color. Beautiful, but not very vibrant. But my second whip is the Serenity shawl by Rachel Booker. It's a free pattern on Ravelry, and I decided to knit it up because it looked really nice in a lot of the pictures. And it's a one skein project. You can make it bigger if you want, but the pattern is designed for one skein. And I thought it would be perfect for my Les Petits Points Parisiennes yarn that my friend Meredith gave to me, one that smells so delicious, although now it's starting to fade. Now it's starting to smell like my house, so who knows what that smells like. Where was I? Oh, this yarn is just scrumptious, right? It's an MCN base, so there's lots of cashmere, at least 10 or 15% cashmere, and I just love it. It's a special yarn, not only for how soft it is, but the color, because it looks blue sometimes it looks teal, sometimes it looks green. Interesting, for this yarn, it looks way bluer in my monitor and much more of a tealy green in real life. But anyway, I couldn't really find something to contrast with this yarn that in my stash that made me happy. So I thought, you know what? This is a special yarn from Paris that my friend gave to me. It's going to stand alone. I want it just to be on its own. So I thought I'd do a nice, smaller shawl that's a very neutral, nothing flashy, all one color, easy pattern to memorize. Well, not memorize, but the lace pattern I don't have memorized. I have to follow the pattern, but everything else, there's a garter band, a stockinette band, a lace band, and you just keep doing these bands until you run out of yarn. And I figure it's going to be nice. I think it'll look good with like jeans and a white t-shirt. Again, see how far, that was stylish in 2002 to 2008, right? That's now I'm wearing t-shirt, white t-shirt and jeans and Skechers runners. But anyways, it'll just look kind of fresh and classic, I think. Don't get me wrong, I love flashy, colorful shawls as well, worn as a scarf, but I think this will be really nice. And I'm knitting pretty fast on it. This is all I have left. I've probably got about maybe 60 grams left. I'd like to have it done before I go to London. I don't know what the weather is going to be like yet. I haven't checked because it's still almost 2 weeks away. It's about 10 days away. But if you live in the London area, I think most of my viewers are in the US, but if you live in the London area and you'd like to get together for a knit, let me know. Message me below or leave me a note below because I'd love to get to know you. Okay, so those are my 2 works in progress. That's it. I can't believe it. So today might be a rather short episode. Spinning. I've got one little baby llama hank here that I spun and plied. What's interesting is that the llama isn't as soft, spun up and plied as it was in its roving form. I guess that's the case for all fiber. But it's quite cute. I don't know what I'll make with this. It's a pretty drapey, loose one, but I do have more baby llama that I'm gonna spin up and maybe do a nice cowl that's soft around the neck. I haven't decided yet, but I've got it. It's 4 ounces of this brown baby llama, 100% baby llama. That's all the spinning I've done. Well, that's not true. I do have, I've got a huge ball of Swedish wool, pencil roving that I'm almost finished, but I'll show that in the next podcast when it's finished, because it's not finished yet. And that one is a pre-dyed variegated yarn, and I can't wait, variegated roving, and I can't wait because I'm going to try to Navajo ply it. So I have never Navajo plied, so I'm really looking forward to that. Okay, so very quickly then, I'll talk a little bit about some yarn that I've been dyeing. I've opened up an Etsy shop, the Professor Knits at Etsy. I'll put it across the screen here. Thank you very much if you've gone to check it out or if you've made a purchase. I still have my free mini skein to my first 10 customers. I haven't gotten 10 customers yet, but that's okay because this is just for fun. So there is still time if you want to get a free mini skein. And like I've said in previous episodes, there's heavily discounted section. And so anyways, I've done a little bit more dyeing, not a whole lot. And what's interesting is I discovered that the water here is very different. I mean, I knew it was, obviously, but the water up where I used to live in South Dakota was very hard. And I actually liked the taste. It wasn't well water, but it was a very hard water, so our washing machine would get a huge calcium and mineral buildup and stuff like that. Here, it's very soft, which I love. For my skin, my hair, my nails, everything feels smoother and healthier, but it doesn't taste as good, unfortunately. But anyways, it made a difference in my dyeing. I tried to re-dye some of my black cherry colorway, because I think that's one I'm going to keep re-dyeing, and it came up quite a bit pinker and lighter than it did before. So I think I'll be able to adjust accordingly and get it back to what I want, because I still have I have the two examples, and they're still drying, so I'm not going to show you. So I really, really loved my original black cherry, so I'm going to try to get that, tweak it back, adjusting for the water, because that's what it's got to be, is the different water. The other colorways I've dyed up were just playing around in the dye pot, and what's so interesting is how similar a lot of them are to colorways I already have, even though I was using completely different dyes. So for example, this blue that I've dyed up, that I'm calling Poseidon, I love it. It's gorgeous. I'm working a lot with the turquoise colorway, the jacquard turquoise, which if you're in Montreal, you'd say turquoise. And I know that a lot of dyers use it as a base for their blue, and they adjust the shade. And I think what's happening is a lot of people are doing that. A lot of people are using it as their base, as a primary color. And the actual turquoise color itself, I rarely see being used alone by indie dyers. So that's what I've done with this, and I've added some black in there as well. So it's a really nice variegated, softly variegated yarn that I absolutely love. But it's very similar to another color that I dyed back in South Dakota, my Dorothy Lake Sunset, using completely different dyes. This is, it's got the turquoise colors in this one. So they're very similar, but you couldn't use them as the same. So the blues with the hints of black is Poseidon. This one is the last one I have, and it's the Dorothy Lake Sunset. Another one is I absolutely love. It's got some pinky, peachy, beigey, browny colors in it, and I haven't named it yet. I have two. This one has a little bit more pink in it than this one. I don't know, I'll have to come up with a name. And I have it's gorgeous, very autumnal. And what's interesting is that it's, again, very similar. And these are all on a 25 merino, 75 superwash merino, 25 nylon, 75 superwash merino base. Very similar, although completely different colors that I dyed it with, to my Harvest, which is on my BFL high twist base. See how similar they are? This one has a lot of yellow in it. Completely different colors. So, like completely different dyes that I use. So it's kind of interesting. I must be gravitating towards certain things subconsciously. Another one is a really soft corally salmony color. Tonal, very that I absolutely love, which I think would look fantastic with gray, or even actually these two, because there's hints of this color in this one. So those two together I think would look beautiful, especially for the fall. So I've got a couple skeins of this. I have one, I was playing around with some green. I'm trying to get a really good Christmas green, and I'm not too sure about this one. I'm just going to show you, I haven't skeined it up yet. It just finished drying. Just came off the dry rack. Sorry, that's my little. So I was trying to find a really good holiday green that's very vibrant. It would be good for color work. Not real color work because it's not, it's superwash, fingering weight, but something like, you know, if you just wanted a pop of color in a red pair of socks or something like that. And I really like it. It's a fairly solid color. There's a little bit of tonal variation in there. So I have got a couple skeins of this once I get it actually skeined up. Here, I can get a close up. So I quite like it. Again, I haven't named it yet, but they will be up in my Etsy shop by the time I upload this video. Two more that are on my DK singles. This one, playing around with some greens and some yellows and some light browns. I call this Summer's Last Gasp because it reminded me of leaves that are starting to die and rot on the ground. I really like dyeing singles, DK singles. Like the way they absorb the color is just so interesting to watch. But they're not fun to deal with. They get very fuzzy and they shed a lot during the dyeing process. But they do, singles do take up the dye in a very phenomenal, beautiful way. So I really like this one. It's a one-off on my Etsy shop. Summer's Dying Gasp, or maybe Summer's Last Gasp. Something like that. I'll decide in the next day. And then this one I just absolutely love. And what's interesting is it's the same colors as this, except a little bit heavier on a brown. But you can see the difference that a different base, the way the different base will take it up. This is a 100% merino DK single. This is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, fingering weight. Almost the same dye bath. Almost the same. I remember, and it's in my notes, that one of the dyes that I used in this that represents the darker brown was a little stronger, and so that made a big difference. I'm telling you, if you haven't started dyeing your own yarn yet, do it. It is so much fun. And when if you make a mistake and you end up with a god-awful color, you just dye it black. Although what's interesting is when my aunt and my mom came to visit me and they were going through all the yarns I had dyed, and I was like, oh, that's just hideous. I have to dye that one black. My aunt's like, or my mom's like, no, it was my aunt. She's like, no, I love it. What are you talking about? So you just never know, right? Everybody has their own taste. I think that's it. So, all right, I think I'm going to let you go. I will probably try to sneak one more podcast in before I leave for London, and I want to do some video vlogging while in London. So again, if you're in the area and you'd like to get together, maybe at Loop or what is it, East London Lits or Wild and Woolly. I think there's a few different ones. I got to look into it. I've only ever been to Loop. I have never been to the other ones yet, so I'm going to have to check them out. If you're going to be in the area, let me know, or we can have a pint of beer and knit, or whatever, or not. I'm going for a conference, so I'll be pretty busy, but I'll always make time for knitting. And of course, in true Nikki style, did I mention at the beginning of the podcast that my name is Nikki? In true Nikki style, I still haven't written the paper for the conference. But my rule is that when I go to conferences, and I try to do 2 or 3 a year, usually one of which is international, I cannot get on the plane until the paper is finished and printed and in my bag. Because one time in London, this is going back about 5 or 6 years ago, I was up till 2 in the morning the night before I was presenting my paper, running around London trying to find a printer to print up my paper. And finally sweet-talked the guy working at the front desk of the hotel, because of course nothing was open, and it was in Bloomsbury, which is kind of like, I couldn't find any open print shop, right? And so I went back to the hotel and sweet talked the front desk guy into letting me use the hotel's printer, and he did. He was very nice. I mean, it was 2 a.m. It's not like he was going to get in any trouble. But the stress and anxiety, and I'd been, I'm not green at this. Like, I've been doing this for a long time. And I thought to myself, after I presented the paper, which went over fine, I was the only woman presenting at that conference, if you can imagine. It was a small conference. When it was done, I thought, that was not worth the stress. I mean, tweaking at the last minute, I'm sure half the people in the audience were fast asleep or not paying any attention. I'm sure most of the people were asleep in the audience anyway. So all that late night tweaking that I did to my conclusion was just it was just anxiety ridden for nothing. So my general rule now is that the paper is done, or if it's not done, too bad. It's printed up, because guess what? Nobody really cares, right? It's not, once I publish it, that's when it really matters, that everything is perfect and well-researched and everything. And of course it's well-researched anyway. But, I'm sure you get the drift, right? I want to enjoy my trip, so no more late night tweaking and 2 a.m. printer hunts. Okay, I think that's enough. Enjoy the weekend. Today's Friday. And enjoy the weather. And if you are in Texas, stay safe. All right, take care and get your knit on.